Isn't it kind of wild how quickly generative AI has become a part of our daily lives? I mean, from drafting emails to just kicking around new ideas, it's like we have this constant creative partner. But what is the nature of that partnership? That's what we're going to dig into.
No, really, just stop and think for a second. How many times maybe you used it to get the gist of a long article or to help you figure out a tricky question? These little interactions are getting so smooth, so seamless, that half the time we don't even realize we're doing it.
And that's the heart of the matter, isn't it? When an AI spits out that perfectly phrased answer, it just feels like it gets you. It feels like it understands your needs, your context, your actual intent. But this feeling of being understood, it actually hides a massive gap between how we think and how these machines really work.
All right, so first things first, we have to lay out the fundamental difference between how a human thinks and how a machine processes information. And look, this is a distinction that's been around since the dawn of computers, but it's one we forget so easily now that AI has gotten so powerful.
This chart breaks it down beautifully. Everything we do is driven by something inside us, right? An intention, a desire, a goal. We always have a why. A machine, on the other hand, its operation is purely triggered. It just responds to a condition, like a prompt, based on its data. There is no internal why whatsoever. I love this quote because it just nails it. The AI doesn't want to help you any more than a clock wants to tell you it's 3 o'clock. Your prompt is just the condition that makes the whole mechanism click, and it sets off this incredibly complex but ultimately pre-programmed reaction. It's pure calculation, not consideration.
Think about when you talk to another person. You're not just processing words. You're constantly, usually without even thinking about it, reading between the lines. You're trying to figure out their motive, their real intention. You're asking yourself, is this a joke or are they being serious? This entire layer of interpretation, which is basically the foundation of all human communication, it's just completely missing when we talk to an AI.
So, if the AI has no intention and it's not actually creating any meaning, then where does all that meaning come from? Well, that question forces us to turn the spotlight around and focus on the most important part of this whole interaction, us.
And here it is. This is the absolute crux of it. The AI is just generating a pattern of words that are statistically likely to come next. That's it. The significance, the interpretation, the meaning, that's all us. We are the ones who project meaning onto its output. We make it make sense.
Now, the real danger kicks in when we forget our role here as the meaning makers. The moment we start treating the AI like it's a conscious being with intentions, we start to let our guard down. We start to accept its output without question. And that's when we risk outsourcing our own critical thinking.
And this has massive implications, especially for how we learn new things. AI can be an unbelievable tool for practice, but if we're not careful, the line between just practicing and genuinely learning can get really, really blurry.
AI is amazing at giving you instant answers. It can give you endless practice drills. But that is not the same thing as deep learning. Real learning, well, it requires struggle. It requires you to internalize something, to use it for a purpose. It's the difference between practicing scales on a piano over and over and actually using music to express a real emotion. And there's a little psychological quirk that makes this even trickier. It's called the teachability phenomenon. We humans are basically wired to trust a teacher. When someone's standing up in front of a class, we just assume they intend to teach us something useful. The risk is that we subconsciously give that same trust to a chatbot, completely forgetting that it has absolutely zero intention to teach us anything at all.
This whole conversation, pitting real understanding against a super sophisticated imitation, it's not new. At all. In fact, it gets right to the heart of a classic philosophical debate about what it actually means for a mind, or a machine, to truly know something. So let's talk about John Searle's famous Chinese room experiment. Imagine you're locked in a room and you don't speak a single word of Chinese. You get questions in Chinese characters slid under the door, but you have this huge rule book that tells you, if you see this symbol, send out that symbol. From the outside, it looks like you're having a fluent, intelligent conversation in Chinese. But do you understand a word of it? Not a single one. You're just manipulating symbols. And that's the core argument for why AI doesn't have true understanding.
This is why historians like Yuval Noah Harari say that AI's intelligence is fundamentally alien to us. It's not just a faster, bigger version of a human brain. It is a completely different kind of processing that operates without any of the consciousness or intention that we take for granted.
To really get a sense of the power behind this great imitation, let's just look at the sheer scale. The Apollo guidance computer, the machine that literally took humans to the moon, it operated on about 6 kilobytes of working memory. An incredible feat. Okay, now compare that to a single modern GPU that's used for AI training. We're talking 80 million kilobytes of memory. The jump in scale is almost impossible to wrap your head around, and that is the kind of brute computational force that allows a system with zero understanding to produce such a convincing imitation of it.
But all that incredible complexity creates a whole new problem, the black box problem. The process becomes so complicated and so opaque that a lot of the time, even the AI's own creators don't know exactly how it got to a specific answer. And that just makes our human judgment and our critical evaluation of the results more important than ever before. So, how are we supposed to engage with these incredibly powerful, super complex, but ultimately intentionless systems? Well, it all starts with a simple but crucial shift in our perspective. We have to see AI as a tool, not as a mind. We just have to remember what makes our own way of communicating so unique. We can talk about yesterday or what we hope for tomorrow. That's called displacement. We can create brand new sentences that have never been said before. And crucially, we can perform acts with our words. When a judge says, "I sentence you," they're doing something real in the world. An AI can mimic those words, but because it doesn't have intention, it can't actually perform the act.
Look, this isn't about throwing out the technology. It's about engaging with it consciously. Use AI as the incredible tool that it is, but always, always remain the critical, aware user who understands its fundamental limits. You have to stay in the driver's seat. And so, that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. If the machine is only providing the text, and you, the human, are the one giving it meaning, what new responsibilities does that place on you, as a user, as a learner, as a thinker? It's definitely something to consider the next time you interact with an AI.